Meet the Mets, meet the Mets. Step right up and greet the Mets. Bring your kiddies, bring your wife. Guaranteed to have the time of your life because the Mets are really socking the ball, knocking those home runs over the wall. East side, west side, everybody's coming down to meet the METS Mets of New York town. Oh, the butcher and the baker and the people on the streets, where do they go? To meet the Mets! Oh, they're hollering and cheering and they're jumping in their seats. Where do they go? To meet the Mets! All the fans are true to the orange and blue, so hurry up and come on down, 'cause we got ourselves a ballpark, the Mets of New York town. Give 'em a yell! Give 'em a hand!
What's up, Mets fans? Welcome back to another Mets Hot Stove Live, another special edition Mets Roundtable podcast. We got Nelson, we got Hayden. Hopefully, James is going to pop in and help us out with the fourth member of the crew, but we are going to say what up to the guys. Don't forget, guys, hit on that like button and subscribe to their channels, guys. It's important. It's important. It's important for this offseason to subscribe to everybody's channel. Everybody's going to be putting out great content, and they're going to let you know all about it. Excuse the little background. We got a little bit of a different background for today for a little bit, unless James comes in, and then we'll set it up perfectly. But you get baseballs throughout the background falling over all over the place. But let's say what up to the crew. Nelson, how you doing?
Not too bad. Good to be with you fellas. Sorry Chris can't be here, but hopefully he'll be with us next time. Yeah, man, just excited to be here. Amish Country Mets Fan is the name of the channel. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do me a favor and do that. Just dropped a little video today talking about Nola and Yamamoto and the non-tender stuff with the pigs out in the background, as you noted before the show started. So, yeah, man, thanks everybody. Hope everybody has a great holiday week, and let's talk some ball.
Absolutely. Hayden, how you doing, buddy? I see you're home.
Yeah, what's going on, everyone? Mets Talk with Hayden is the name. Yeah, I'm home for Thanksgiving for the week. So good to be back down in South Florida where I am. Yeah, off season is here. I've done a couple videos so far this off season. I actually just recorded one before we got on here. It's 5 predictions that the Mets should do this off season. So probably gonna upload that tomorrow. Get that out of the way, and then I have another video going over DH candidates. So probably 2 videos this week will be nice. Maybe I'll do a stream. We'll see what my timetable is like. I only have so much time at home, so we'll see. But yeah, otherwise, Mets Talk with Hayden is the name. Videos, live streams, analysis, news, all that great stuff. And yeah, otherwise, good to be back for another Roundtable podcast with y'all. So yeah, let's go Mets.
All right, guys. So let's get started with the Mets Hot Stove. And the topic and the anticipation of Yamamoto being posted finally happened. Today he is posted, and tomorrow at 8 a.m. teams can start talking to him and give them their proposals, give them a little, presentation of why they should be with a particular team. And we all know the Mets are very much in need of starting pitching and pitching in general. So there has been a lot of reports. Andy Martino posted it. I think Joel Sherman also posted it as well, that most likely he's not going to do like a tour of ballparks. He's going to stay in one particular area, probably somewhere on the West Coast with his agent, where all the teams have to go and meet up with him and do their presentation on the West Coast, where the agent's agency is. And that's where it's all going to happen. And a lot of people believe that nothing's really going to happen until like early December after the holiday, where he's going to start speaking to teams. But if the craziness happens quickly, it might happen more quickly than we actually thought. And it could be during the winter meetings, could be a little bit after, a little bit before. But Nelson, I'm going to start with you. With Yamamoto being posted, obviously we all believe that is number one on everybody's list for the New York Mets to get Yamamoto. And with that said, what are your thoughts about where the price range are going to be? We already seen Aaron Nola get a huge contract for basically a solid number 3 starter, possibly a good number 2. But with Yamamoto, where do you look the years and the money's going to look like? And what happens if the Mets don't get Yamamoto?
Years and money for Yamamoto, it's tough to gauge, but I mean, everything that I've read says he's going to get over 200 mil, which would line up considering Nola got 172, and I mean he's much older. Yamamoto's upside seems to be a little higher, given what everybody says. He's potential ace. He's only 20. What? How old is he? 25. 20. He's pretty young. So yeah, I could see him getting an 8 year deal for around, I don't know, 225, 250. The Mets, if they strike out on Yamamoto, it's tough. Their options then become Blake Snell, who I personally don't love. And then there's a big fall off, really. But like, there's not too many like ace pitchers out on the market. It's a lot of 3, 4, 5 starters, which we need as well. But that other like big ticket starter isn't really out there, so they might have to pivot to the trade market. We'll see. Hopefully they get Yamamoto, because I really don't want to think too much about what happens if they don't. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I could see them pivoting to Snell, but I really hope they don't. I just hope at that point Stearns gets creative and figures it out some other way. But the market for pitching is I mean, if Lance Lynn got $10 million and he stunk this year, so the market for pitching might get a little crazy. So we'll see how this all shakes out.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you on the whole Lance Lynn getting 10 million, and guys that are like often injured, like Luis Severino, who we'll talk about a little later, is probably going to get more than that. So, Hayden, what do you think about the whole Yamamoto situation? He's posted 8 a.m. tomorrow. Teams can officially start talking to him. What do you think about the years in the range? We know he's 25 years old, so that's always a good sign when you want to sign a pitcher. It's not a 31, 38, 40-year-old that the Mets would be signing. So what do you think about Yamamoto, and what type of pivot do you think the Mets would have to do if they don't land free agency?
Yeah, I mean, like Nelson and you guys kind of said, the starting pitching is very limited this offseason. I mean, you saw Aaron Nola. I mean, how much he got, considering what that market is. Really, the starting pitching free agency this year, you have 2 tiers. You have elite and then pretty much the definition of mid. And that's, why, I mean, there's a big drop-off once Yamamoto really goes off the market. I mean, he's probably going to sign one of the richest contracts for starting pitching this offseason. You ask me a price, it's going to probably be well north of $200 million. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if you see this 25, 30 million AAV for him. Yeah. Considering what his stuff has, how filthy he is, how electric he is. In terms of years, was he 25? I think someone said. 8 years probably.
Yeah, 25.
I would assume probably somewhere in that general ballpark number. I mean, his stuff is good. I mean, he's a good pitcher. We know that. You slot him into that rotation with Senga, and that's a really good 1-2 punch. Very similar stuff, very similar movement, mechanics, what they have in terms of arsenal. Very, very effective. Listen, if you don't get Yamamoto, yeah, that kind of stinks, and that's kind of, an 0-2 on the offseason, in my opinion. But I mean, we're really just gonna have to wait and see. I mean, there are other guys, Blake Snell, Sonny Gray, If there's anyone big that I'm mixing out, but Jordan Montgomery. But Yamamoto, I feel, is probably arguably you kind of know what you're going to get from him to an extent. I know those other three guys have been in the MLB, but Snell, knowing how he was in San Diego, he only wasn't a good pitcher till his contract year. Never seen that before. Wink, wink. Montgomery, sure. Gray, sure. But I mean, Yamamoto would really be a good way to boost up the Mets morale this offseason by getting, considering your rotation is Senga and Quintana, and then who else? So if you really miss out on Yamamoto, I mean, that's really just taking the Mets and pushing them over pretty much. I mean, that would really suck, especially if he were to go to a team like the Yankees or the Phillies or the Braves or a division rival. We heard that. Really, all teams are going to pursue Yamamoto hard, but it really just comes down to who could, be the most manipulative and effective and to the most of his liking. And, hopefully it's the Mets. You really do. We know that Senga is definitely he's been a big advocate for him to come. So I guess we'll have to see. But Yamamoto, you'd like to get a deal in within, ideally, 2 weeks from now would be pretty nice if you can kind of have a couple teams, push down for Yamamoto. So, ideal contract, I guess, to previously state. 6, 7, 8 years could be nice. Contract, probably around $200 million. I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, and again, I'm going to reciprocate exactly what you guys said. It's going to be north of $200 million. I think whoever gives that extra year and is willing to give that extra $25 to $30 million a year is probably going to get him. I know he's intrigued with the pinstripes. I mean, that's all you hear about every baseball player. They're always intrigued about the pinstripes. But I honestly think the Yankees are going to get priced out, and it's good. I think the Red Sox are going to be pushing for him as well. I think the Yankees will get priced out because I think they, for last year, and I fought with Yankee fans a lot over this time, according about Yamamoto, is that if you heard Yankee fans last year, you thought they had the best rotation in baseball with Rodon and Cortez and Cole and everything like that. And yet they're clamoring for Yamamoto, and the Yankees are going hard after Yamamoto when they can't hit a baseball. So I see it as this. If the Mets give the biggest offer, he's coming to the Mets. I don't think there's about 2% of players that take less money to go back to their original team take less money to go to a team. Again, we heard that Nola was going to get more money from other players, other teams to go to their team, and he took less to come back to the Phillies. It doesn't happen. And again, this is him going from Japan to MLB. He's not taking less money. It's just not happening. Like, if that's the case, he'll stay in Japan another year and then see what happens. I see it as this. Yamamoto is priority number one. If the Mets don't get Yamamoto, I see them doing, if they can't get a trade for a Dylan Cease, I know the Dodgers are in on him, Corbin Burns, or another, Glass now, guys like that, and they don't want to do that trade with multiple prospects, I think they're going to go middle of the road. I think they're going to make Senga their ace, go with a little mid-level relievers, and you've seen that you don't need dominant starting pitching through the season to make the playoffs. You just hope that you got the right guys that pitch in the playoffs and pitch well, and then hopefully you guys hit in the lineup. That's how I see it go. So Yamamoto is obviously key to all of this. I think it's going to start the story for the Mets offseason. It's going to be, start of a A+ offseason and a plan A offseason. And I don't even think there's a plan B. I think it's going to go right down to plan C if Yamamoto is not a New York Met. And again, we'll probably have to wait about 2 weeks, maybe 3, to see where Yamamoto goes. But Yamamoto is definitely priority number one. So a couple of days ago, the Mets have a new scouting director, and he worked with David Stearns while he was his short stint in Houston. Chris Gross is the new scouting director for the Mets. We know the outstanding job the Astros have done with prospects, getting rid of, losing Correa or Springer. You can go on and on and on with the guys they lost, and bringing up these guys that are filling in their spots. And they've done a great job. And it's not like they've been picking 1 or 2 in the draft over the last couple of years, winning World Series, making the playoffs every year, making ALCS, 6 years in a row. And drafting is key, scouting is key, and this guy knows what he's doing. So Nelson, Chris Gross, do you think it's a good pickup? And it's just showing more and more having guys that Stearns trust and having guys, quality people, to run the entire organization from scouting all the way up from development, I think is key. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to pretend to be some expert on this guy. I heard of him yesterday, like most people. He seems like he's legit. The Astros obviously have had one of the better farm systems in baseball for a while. A lot of their guys make it to the Major League Baseball and actually produce, where that's something where the Mets have lacked. Like, I think saw a list yesterday. I think we were like last in developing talent that reaches the majors after they're drafted. So if we can improve that with this guy, that would be great. Obviously, Stearns is hiring guys that he's close to, that he knows, and that's to be expected. I imagine they're going to be able to do the job. And listen, I mean, until we actually see what they do, and like obviously his biggest thing's going to be next year's draft. And then we have to see what they do as far as acquiring free agents and everything else. But I don't know, nothing. I mean, absolutely everything I've read says that this guy is phenomenal at his job. I read somewhere that he's likely going to be a future GM. So who knows? Maybe he gets promoted to be GM next year or something like along those lines. You never know. So we'll see. I like it. Obviously, I mean, can't complain with a guy that's got the track record he has with the Houston Astros, who is a proven winner. So
I agree. Hayden, so what do you think about that signing, the scouting director? The Mets have problems with that. What do you think about him?
Yeah, I mean, kind of like to summarize, I guess to kind of agree with Nelson, I don't really know a lot about him. I haven't really heard the name till probably about a week ago when the Mets got him. But, I think it's good to change things up a little bit. Obviously, like we said, he has a rapport with David Stearns, so that, it's good that there's a connection. Stearns knows him and he knows Stearns. We've seen the Mets, one of the few teams in baseball, and, we see how vital homegrown talent is. Any successful baseball franchise could tell you that. And the Mets have been, I would say they've been better than some other teams. I'd say they've been up to par with producing homegrown talent, but there's always room to improve on that. And I think this is a great opportunity to do that. Like, I mean, I saw that list also where it showed the percentage of teams where the guys that they drafted made it to the MLB, made it. They could have played one game and could have been a bum. The Mets were last on that. I think they were at like 7%. They were 30th on that list. And I mean, that's outrageous. I mean, they need to do better in that category if that's the case. And I think this is, the first step to that. Obviously, this upcoming draft is going to be big. We know that the Mets are in a much better position due to the unfortunate season this past season, so that they'll have a better draft spot number-wise. So, yeah, we'll see how that goes. But I definitely think, the farm system, now that you kind of got the group of your Alvarez and Beatty and Vientos and Mauricio, that they're kind of already in the MLB. Your next group of guys of Parada, Gilbert, Williams, they're going to become what the baby Mets have, soon. So, next you're going to kind of want that another, group of low A prospects, and definitely this could be a good addition to that. So, yeah, I think it's a solid move, and we'll see how it pays off.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, it's not a bad move. It's clearly a guy that, they get their prospects up to the majors. And again, like Hayden said, if they don't perform, they don't perform. But they, more often than not, they do. And you know what? If you're going to have a top 10, top 11 farm system, depending on where you look, top 7 or 8 farm system, you got to start bringing these guys up or using them as assets. So, there is breaking news. It looks like Jose Rosado might be the next new bullpen coach for the Mets. He was in the Yankee system, and he was also a pitching coach in Korea. So he might be the new bullpen coach. It's looking like it's going to happen soon. All right. So when it comes to, we got the scouting director, David Stearns, made his first sign-in as a Mets president of baseball ops. It is a reliever. Cole Sulser is got him on a minor league deal, invite to spring training. He's a right-handed pitcher. He's a guy that 2 years ago in 2021 had a 2.70 ERA. He had a really good season and just hasn't been the same the last 2 seasons. And he was with the Diamondbacks, so he gets an NL champ ring. He pitched for 4 games, but he gets a championship ring for the National League championship ring. So again, when it comes to bullpen arms, it's always a crapshoot. You know, look what the Braves just did. They just signed. They just traded a week ago for Bummer 5-for-1 to get Bummer, and he hasn't had a good season for a couple of years. And you know they're gonna try to hopefully catch lightning in a bottle. So I see it like this, and they also signed Reynaldo Lopez as well, that they actually might change into a starter. But right now he is one of those reliever on a 3-year deal. Again, it's nothing to be excited about, but again, you need depth in the bullpen. You need depth in the minors. You know, if he becomes a guy that is, you know, a long man, you know, can pitch a couple of innings in the 5th inning if a starter don't go deep. It's, you know, it's depth. And again, the Mets have 28 guys on a 40-man roster, so he's got to fill a lot of roster spots as well. So, Hayden, I'm going to start with you. Not a crazy signing, not a popular signing. Nobody's going to, you know, wave the World Series banner for a guy like that. But you know what? It shows what David Stern's trying to do here. He's trying to bring in a lot of guys and probably a lot of bullpen arms. You're going to see a lot of these minor spring training invites, minor league signings, specifically in the bullpen, just to see who sticks. And of course, there'll always be a couple of big names. So what do you think this type of move represents in your eyes with David Stern?
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's a bullpen move. You know, looking at a team's bullpen, that's something that you really address annually. I mean, there's only a few relievers and, you know, bullpen arms in the league where they're not annual guys. So when it comes to Cole Sulser, I think that's his name, goes to show you, I haven't even heard of the dude before. I guess I saw the tweet earlier this past day. I guess it's a solid move. You know, you play smart. And that's what Stearns is doing. We know that the Mets don't have a lot of bullpen help, minus Diaz and Brooks Raley. And, you know, Stearns is a very analytically driven guy, and now you give him a little bit of money, but you still want to make those small, smart, Moneyball type moves. And I mean, this could be an example. You know, maybe they saw something in him, mechanic-wise, number-wise, what he could offer a certain pitch. I don't know. I don't really know much about Cole Sulser at all. But you know what I could tell you is you need as many bullpen arms as possible and let him go out there spring training. So what he has, and if he's capable for making the roster, the 40-man, so be it. But, you know, you're going to see a lot of little moves like this happen this offseason where, you know, guys are going to get, you know, an invite to spring training or whatever. And, you know, every reliever had to have been somewhere at one point. Not saying Cole Sulser is going to, you know, be a huge part to the Mets season in 2024, but, you know, you saw this past season, I mean, how overtaxed and overburdened the bullpen was. And, you know, you had a couple guys come in early. Grant Harwood was one guy, was great for about a month and a half and then kind of wet the bed in the later halves. But, you know, you're going to need guys like that to come in and really, you know, keep your starters' arms alive. You know, you look at baseball nowadays and, you know, starters aren't going as long. You know, bullpen arms are coming in 5th, 6th, 7th inning. You know, guys aren't going 8 innings anymore. That's just not baseball today. So you need as many bullpen arms as possible. So I think this is you know, Stearns is playing smart, and you know we'll see a lot more moves like this offseason.
Yeah, and you're right. Starting pitchers not going as long anymore, but they're getting paid more. So go figure. How did that work? But Nelson, what do you think about what do you think that this move represents with David Stearns? Do you think he's going to be, you know, bullpen by committee, like, you know, bringing so many guys in and just seeing what sticks? What do you think?
I don't think this necessarily means like that's his strategy for the bullpen per se. You're gonna do that. There's gonna be multiple guys that he's just gonna pick up and see what sticks. Like, but there's also gonna be like more legitimate bullpen pieces coming in, I'm sure. But yeah, that's what this is. 2021, this guy had a great year. 2022 wasn't that great. ERA was pretty bad, but he still struck out 10 batters per 9 innings. last year he only pitched 5 innings. He's dealt with shoulder issues, so you can get him healthy and he can get some guys out in spring training. Maybe we give him a shot at some point this year. Well, that's how I'd rather build a bullpen anyway. I'm not a believer in shelling out huge contracts for bullpen arms. Like, I'm not in love with what the Braves did with Lopez. Like, yeah, he's been decent, but 10 million, or I think it was 10 million a year for a guy that you never know. Like, these bullpen arms are so volatile. You know, one year they can be great, the next year they can suck. So I'd rather in that case bring in guys that on like a flyer and hope that we catch them on the year that they're really good. Kind of like granted, we signed him to a little bit more money, but Aaron Loop, we signed him. He had an awesome year for us. Then he left and he stunk. So like stuff happens with bullpen pieces. So yeah, I mean, we're probably going to see more minor league deals like this. I saw some people like freaking out. Oh, this is what we're doing. Like, dude, the whole season just started. Like, let's give it to at least the winter meetings before we start freaking out about guys. Like, Aaron Nola is the only real legit guy that signed, and he just stayed with Philly. So people need to kind of relax. I think people are a little antsy. It's going to be okay. You're going to see minor deals like this. It's not the end of the world. It happens every year. We're going to see it on the offensive side as well. Nothing wrong with minor league deals. You're giving out less than $1 million just for a guy to show up at camp. Like, that's chump change. So yeah, I got no issues with moves like this.
Yeah, exactly. Like I said, there's going to be a lot of small moves. Again, Stearns is, revamping this whole roster. Again, I just said there was 28 guys on the 40-man, and there's a lot of room. That's 12 more guys that he has to fill on the roster. Again, you bring in a lot of guys. You see what sticks. Minor league invites are always in spring training. Invites are always important. You never know who might surprise you and might be a big part of the bullpen going forward. And again, I'm with Nelson. I don't believe in giving guys, unless it's a closer, 10, 11, 3-year deals for $10, $11 million for what? Right? We had Ottavino this year that was outstanding in 2022 and was a complete disaster in 23. I understand the roles change, but you're a bullpen guy. You're supposed to be used to roles changing. And I see it as this. I'd rather have a lot of guys that can pitch multiple innings and, that can come in any inning and be comfortable in any inning. Give me guys that can go 2-3 innings a day, anytime, any moment. And, not saying that you need, 4 guys to have a 7 ERA, but I mean, it's a crapshoot. And I see this as just bringing in depth and seeing what sticks right now. And yeah, he'll get names in this bullpen that you probably recognize. I mean, David Stearns is not stupid. He's done a great job pitching-wise, bullpen and starting pitching with the Brewers. And that was one of his big sticks when it comes to the Brewers was pitching. They always had a really decent bullpen and good starting pitching. And I think he's going to try to do the same here with the Mets. It's just that he has a hell of a lot more resources now, and he can use it to his advantage. So we'll see where that goes. So we just talked about Aaron Nola a little bit. 7 years, $172 million, just under $25 million per year. I was shocked at that contract, and he took less to go back to the Phillies, which, again, I'm never surprised when a guy goes back to the same team he was and takes a little less money. Judge did it last year. Nola did it this year. Who knows if Pete Alonso does it after this offseason, if the Mets don't give him an extension. But with Aaron Nola, $25 million a year for – look, I fought with Philly fans for 2 years, 3 years. Aaron Nola, for years, I never thought he was an ace, and he's not an ace. And I would say he's a solid number 3, occasionally number 2. But he made that $25 million per year, $172 million over 7 years because of what he did in the postseason over the last 2 seasons. 2 postseasons. It's absolutely. And I said this, I'm not a big fan of Aaron Nola, but his season numbers don't jump off the charts, but his postseason numbers do. And that's why he got paid, and that's why he got the years. Why I was willing for the Mets to go out and get him, and maybe they were one of the teams that were offering more money. I don't know if $26, $27 million for a number 3 starter is something I would do, but look, the market's is trending in that direction. So you got to be looking to spend, big money for guys like that. But he's outstanding, Nelson, in, the postseason, and that's why he got paid. What do you think this means for the overall pitching market? And do you think it's a miss by the Mets trying to get Aaron Nola, even though he didn't want to go anywhere else?
No, I don't think it's a miss. I never really wanted him. Like you said, he's very good in the postseason. In the regular season, he's hit or miss. He's solid. He's not a bad pitcher. Let's get that straight. Not saying Aaron Nola's a bad pitcher. I just don't think he's worth that much money. I feel like a similar thing's going to happen with Jordan Montgomery. Jordan Montgomery pitched lights out in the playoffs. He probably pitched himself into a contract that I'm not willing to pay him. Teams are going to fall in love with what he did in the postseason and give him that kind of money, as opposed to in the regular season he was solid, but he's not an ace either. So that's my fear with pitchers like that. I don't want to fall into the trap of giving guys like that huge contracts and then we're stuck. Like Snell, similar in that I feel like he's a contract year hero. Like he's that guy that had a great contract year, and I fear he'll fall off again. I mean, we saw after he won the Cy Young with the Rays, he fell off pretty bad. Yeah. He's been decent, serviceable, but is he worth ace money? In my opinion, no. But then again, if you strike out on every other starter, you got to do something. So do you just suck it up and overpay for a Montgomery or a Snell? Maybe. Easy, I see, makes it. He can pitch in New York. He has proven that. That's something solid to hang your hat on. So yeah, that might be a fallback option. Yeah, I can't say that we missed on Nola. Like, happy for Philly, they got him. That's good. Hopefully, I mean, there were reports that they're in on Yamamoto too. Everybody apparently is in. The whole Major League Baseball wants Yamamoto. So we'll see. I don't see a world where the Mets get outbid. If it's personal preference and he just wants to go somewhere else based on whatever is in his head, location, or he likes certain players on a team, or he just doesn't think the Mets are worth going to, then that's different. But if Steve Cohen really wants Yamamoto, he's the richest guy in baseball. I don't see him getting outbid for him. So, I'm no sweat off my back if I'm missing out on Nola. It is what it is.
Hayden, what do you think about that? What do you think about that massive contract for Nola for, a guy like that who's not even a top line starter, either a number one or number two, in my opinion?
Yeah, I mean, it just goes to show you, how limited the starting pitching market is this offseason, and kind of how desperate some teams are. 25 million AAV for a number 3 starter. It's kind of crazy to think about. I think kind of with Philly now, does that mean that they're out on the Yamamoto possibility? I would say it probably means so, unless they want to put Nola as a 4 and then paying a number 4 guy 25 million AAV. That's kind of insane, but I mean, hey, it's happened before, but I just don't see Philly kind of having that facade or philosophy within their rotation. But I mean, listen, good for the Phillies. We know the Phillies are a good team. They have good pitching. We saw how a lot of their pitching was this October. It was very good. It really was. And I think they're definitely going to have another great season. When it comes down to Nola, I never really expected the Mets to get him. I never really saw any reports that the Mets were interested. Really, the only 2 teams that I read upon were the Phillies and the Braves, and I guess the Braves didn't get him, so woohoo! But the Phillies got him, so we'll see. Like I said, I never really expected the Mets to go after Nola, so it doesn't really change my perspective or point of view on who else the Mets can go after. I still think it's going to be the similar guys of Yamamoto, Montgomery, other starting free agent pitchers and maybe some trade candidates also. But good for Aaron Nola. He got his money. He'll spend the rest of his career most likely in Philly. I mean, unless he's what, like 30 now. So unless he's only been in the league since 2018, 17. So feels a lot, longer. But
Yeah.
listen, is he the Cy Young caliber pitcher what he used to be? I don't think he's that 2018-19 form anymore. But we saw this was probably one of the best seasons he had most recently. We saw how dominant he was in the playoffs, and I mean that definitely made the Phillies have a move. So good for the Phillies.
Yeah, it is good for the Phillies. I mean, does it make him better? No. He's just, is he going to be better? Possibly, maybe not. But again, it don't make them better. It makes them basically the same team they are at the moment. I just want to say something about somebody brought up in the chat. Kind of live saying about, is the Union going to be mad? No, the reason why I talked about the Union being mad about the Aaron Judge situation was because Aaron Judge was set in the market. He was the best player on the market, the best player, the biggest free agent on the market in that particular. Like Judge was the biggest position player on the market. Nola is not the biggest pitcher on the market. It's Yamamoto and technically Ohtani. So Nola's not setting any limit there or any type of further future salaries for other guys. Yamamoto will, and probably Ohtani, even though he's not pitching in 2024. So yeah, the Union's probably not, but he went back to his original team. That's the other thing. Players only take less money to go back to their original team. You have to realize that. Again, 1 or 2% of the players take less money to go where they prefer, and that's rare, very rare. So yeah, I agree with you guys when it comes to Nola. I would have thought that the Mets would be in on him. Were they one of the teams that offered him more money? I think that's hard to believe. But again, the Mets are desperate. Just like Hayden said, there's a lot of teams desperate for pitching. So, that, it's going to cost a lot of money. And I think, if Aaron Nola is going to get 172 million, you already know Montgomery's probably closer to 200 since he's pitched in New York. He even pitched just as good, if not better, than Nola in the postseason, and he pitched well in the World Series as well. So we'll see how that goes. And again, Yamamoto is going to set the market for the remainder of the pitchers when it comes to that. He's probably going to get $27 to $30 million. So we'll see. But good for Nola. He got paid. He likes it there. I mean, you saw the way Philly was talked about with the fans through this postseason. So, he likes it there, and why not, right? So, Stroman, God, no, please. I saw that in the comments. Stroman is a no. All right. So we talked about, we heard a little bit about Luis Severino as an option. The Mets were interested in. The Mets supposedly are speaking to him. And we also talked about Brandon Woodruff. We're going to talk about Brandon Woodruff, who is not going to be able to pitch most likely in 2024, but is an option for 2025. And he was non-tendered by the Brewers. So, Hayden, I'm going to start with you with Severino. I don't think it's a terrible option if, again, you ain't signing Severino to be your number 2 or 3. All right. You're signing Severino to be your number 5, probably, maybe worst case scenario, number 4. Probably a $10, $11 million, maybe $12 million for 1 year, maybe a team option for a second, something like that. But, we know he has good stuff. He can't stay healthy. He can't repeat his mechanics. I think there's a lot of issues with that. I think I kind of answered my own question. But again, I'm going to ask you for your opinion about that. What do you think of Luis Severino as like a 5th starter?
I'd be very, very cautious. You literally said it. When he's on the mound, he's great. But unfortunately, he isn't. I mean, you look at 2017, 18, he made 31, 32 starts. Great. 2019, only 3 games. 2021, only 4 games. 2022, he looked better, played 19 games, solid stuff. And then you saw this season where he pretty much played half the season and then came back and sucked. No. I'm done with the Mets going after guys that can't stay on the field. Jacob deGrom is too frequent in my head. Other guys, Max Scherzer too. Listen, if you wanted to give him a very small deal and invest in him, high risk, sure. I would invest in him, honestly, being a number 6 starter. Because I'm not giving him that 5 spot, and then I picture it. Spring training, he's hurt and he misses a week, and then we're gonna have to McGill and Peterson. I can't. I don't think Mets fans can go another season, another April and May, with 1 or 2 guys in their rotation hurt. Like I said, Severino has great stuff.
Yeah.
He good mechanics, a good arsenal of pitches, mixes them up well. They're only playing 5-10 games a season. I genuinely don't really care. So Severino, I'm really gonna honestly probably have to say no. You really wanted to give him this 1-year deal, prove yourself. Small 1-year deal, low AAV, go for it. I have no problem. But I'm not banking him on the rotation if that's going to be the case. There are other guys. We heard the Brewers are willing to kind of put some guys on the market. I would have no problem if the Mets wanted to go out and try and get a Corbin Burns or Brandon Woodruff. I think those guys are much more reasonable to be in a rotation long term and help the Mets success wise, especially in October. You are going to need that. So a guy like Burns, Woodruff. You look at the White Sox, Dylan Cease. Those are a couple names I think you could reasonably go after. But yeah, Severino, 1-year prove-it deal. Very low deal, I would give it. I can't. I don't want Glasnow either for that exact reason. Mets are done going after guys that are Tommy John or just cannot stay on the field. I'm done with that. Jacob deGrom, PTSD is still present. So yeah.
Yeah. Nelson, what do you think about Severino?
Yeah, no, I understand all the concerns. This is where the only difference with like the Jacob deGrom and even with Glasnow, like those guys, you'd be relying on them to be your 1 or 2 starter. Severino, like if we go there, ideally it's in a world where we've signed Yamamoto, we have Senga, we have Quintana. We're bringing them in to take a flyer. Again, it's taking a chance that he bounces back, has a good year, and he's a solid 5th or 6th starter for you if it's a 6-man rotation. That on a prove-it deal, like you said, I would do. If we're relying on him to be like a 3rd or 4th starter, hell no. But if he's just going to be a 5th or 6th, then I think that's okay. You're not going to be able, like, realistically, we're not going to find 5 or 6 sure things. It's just not going to happen. It's just going to cost too much. You're going to have to live in a world where you get 2 very good to solid starters, and then you plug in with guys like they're coming off injury or just have a down year or something like that. That's just the way it is. It'd be nice if we could have just an elite rotation. I just don't see it top to bottom being that way. We also have some kids that'll be ready at some point. So if it doesn't work out with Severino or whoever else that we would bring in, then you could hopefully rely on him or something. But
yeah,
I see Giolito's name. I don't love that move. He fell off really hard, and I feel like he's going to get paid more than he's worth. Seth Lugo, if he wanted to come in and we actually gave an opportunity to start, then I actually would like that. He had a pretty solid year last year. I liked him when he was here. For whatever reason, we never trusted him to start, except for occasionally. I'm assuming he's going to want to start. Like he started last year. I'm assuming he's going to want to start again. So I would definitely look into it if he's open to a reunion. But it'd be nice if he could. Well, I say it'd be nice if he could pitch out of the bullpen, but at the same token, not really, because we all saw when he was in the bullpen, he was great, but he'd have to take a day or 2 off every time he pitched. So it was like it was nice to have him, but then you couldn't use him every day. So yeah, if he's another option for a back end of the rotation guy, I wouldn't sneeze at that at all either. So That's my take.
Yeah, I mean, we all said it, over the last couple of weeks that there's a lot of middle of the rotation guys. Nothing that's gonna be like, oh, Jordan Montgomery is probably the closest one to being a close number two, but he's still also a middle of the rotation guy. So I don't think you can go wrong with a lot of these guys. Severino. Again, this is all a way to look at it. If you get Yamamoto, now you have a lot to work with here. You can play around a little bit. You already got 3 starters already. Quintana is probably going to be a number 4. You got to look for possibly a number 3 and a number 5. I have no problem bringing in Severino. Severino doesn't work out, and he's often injured, and he comes back and pitches 1 great out and then 2 bad outings. Like you said, Nelson, you got, Mike Vasil. You got a couple other guys coming up through the farm as well that the Mets could give an opportunity to. I don't really think that, again, it always goes back to Yamamoto. But, if you get Yamamoto, you got a lot to, play around with when it comes to the rotation. You got a lot of options. And then you don't have to make that big trade for a top line starting pitcher because, well, you got him. So Brandon Woodruff, I was a little shocked that he got non-tendered by the Brewers. I thought they were going to at least keep him around. And I know he was going to be a free agent after this year, but they're not going to get they didn't get nothing for him either, which is a little weird. He has a shoulder capsule injury, which is always scary, a shoulder for a pitcher. He's 30 years old, going to be 31 when he's a free agent. Hayden, what do you think about Brandon Woodruff signing him on like the Mets did with John Curtis at the reliever, paid him for 1 year to rehab him in their farm system, in their rehab, rehabbing him under their watch. Would you do the same thing with Brandon Woodruff? You got a high upside. When he pitched this year, 11 games, he had a 2.25 ERA. Would you pick him up for, say, a 2-year deal with, knowing that this year you're paying him just to rehab him?
Yeah, and I mean, I guess that's kind of the issue with picking up Woodruff is obviously he's not going to really play much this season, if at all. And I guess would you be willing to pay a pitcher to sit on the bench and be hurt? And Mets have done it before. But, yeah, I mean, if it really came down to it and if the Mets were really that, I guess, desperate, a possibility. I prefer if the Mets were to go after a guy like Burns than Woodruff. I know Brandon Woodruff had a lot of issues with the Brewers front office, with the arbitration, all that shenanigans. I know they talked about it, I think, last offseason. So considering he kind of, walked away, it didn't really surprise me. But as of right now, I would much rather go after Burns than Woodruff. But it really came down to it. I don't know. It's tough. It's like, would you really want to pay a pitcher to essentially not play at all this season and then have him next year? So you don't want to give him a long-term deal right now because you have no idea what he's going to be like coming back from that injury. Right now, I'd probably say no, but honestly, I'd much rather go after Burns.
Yeah, and I understand. I mean, I've been on Corbin Burns when the season was still going on. But again, that's going to require assets. And again, we don't know what David Stearns is thinking when it comes to that. Nelson, I'll get your opinion about Woodruff in a second, but yeah, I would trade prospects to get Corbin Burns or another starting pitcher that's on the market. I have no problem doing that. There's no point of you having a top 10 farm system and not using it to your advantage if you can. And Nelson, what do you think about getting Woodruff probably on a 2-year deal, knowing that he's not going to pitch this year?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, we've done it before. Curtis signed him to rehab a year and then had him last year. Again, it all really stems back to Yamamoto because Yamamoto gives you the freedom to take flyers on things like this.
Yes.
If you have Yamamoto in place, then yeah, signing Woodruff to like a 2. Maybe even if you can get him cheaper for a 3-year deal, I would even consider that.
Yeah.
But again, you just have to have your other pieces set in stone. And if you don't have Yamamoto, that's a risk of probably not going to take. If you have Yamamoto, that changes things. Burns, yeah, the thing about Burns is, like you said, he costs assets. That Woodruff is just money. The Mets obviously have money. Whether or not they want to spend it on whoever, that's up to them, but they have money. The prospects is, it's hit it, like you hear different things about whether Stearns wants to actually trade some of these guys or not, or whether the Brewers are even interested in trading Burns. We don't know that for sure. So, yeah, man, if he's willing, if, like I said, if it's Yamamoto's in place and we can take flyers on guys like that, I don't have a problem with it. If you don't have Yamamoto in place, though, then you gotta kind of regroup and think about what you're doing and try to get guys that are maybe more likely to be able to help this year and next year and so on. But yeah, I mean, 2 years for Woodruff, it's not a horrible idea. I'm sure some team's going to do it. I highly doubt he's going to sit around all year. I mean, he might, but some tells me some team's going to jump on it and give him that kind of deal.
Yeah, and listen, he's an ace. Like, let's be honest, when he's healthy, he's an ace, right? 11 games this year, he was 2.25 ERA. So he when he pitches, he's outstanding. But yeah, you see, we're like broken records. It's all about Yamamoto for the Mets, and in not saying that it's the end of the world if we don't get Yamamoto. The Mets can pivot and do something. Again, trades, couple of signings here and there. Maybe they do go after Jordan Montgomery and make a big push for him. But yeah, I tend to agree. I think if the Mets sign Yamamoto, everything's fair game. Nobody should be mad about what they do after that when it comes to starting pitching wise. Like if they bring in, Eduardo Rodriguez, or if they bring in, anybody on the free agent market, Severino, you want to bring in a guy like that, fine. Because you're only worrying about 2 more spots in this rotation. And if you really, a number 3, I mean, you can find a number 3. I mean, I don't think it's that much of an issue. As long as you got that top guy and a quality number 2, which if you get Yamamoto and Senga, you got an ace pitcher and a quality number 2 who can be a 1A in Senga. And then you got an innings eater in Quintana when healthy, which I think he will, because most of his career, Quintana is an innings eater, and that would help as your 4th starter. So I see it as bring in Severino, bring in another guy that, is another innings eater that can, pitch good every now and then. Find me a 5th starter that doesn't have a 4.5 ERA. Like everywhere around baseball has that. So if you got an ace pitcher and a really good number 2, I think most teams 3 through 5 is usually a crapshoot, right? The Mets tried, 1 A's and 2 A's and, 3 pitchers that could be aces on other teams. It didn't work. Now, that's just the Mets' luck, probably. But, I mean, look at the playoffs this year. Can you name me a dominant starting rotation? I mean, the Rangers had to trade for almost everybody to finish their rotation. The Phillies, Wheeler was their best pitcher, and he had a 3.5 ERA. So, nobody around the league, even the teams that made the playoffs, had extremely good starting pitching where you're like, I don't want to face that rotation in the playoffs. The Mets had that, and they got knocked out quickly. And so I see it as this. Get Yamamoto. Do everything you can to get Yamamoto. You have the most money. I don't care if you got to give $30 to $40 million more. It's a risk willing to take for a 25-year-old with that type of stuff. And then you go from there, and everything else is on the table, in my opinion. So we got the non-tender deadline that just passed a couple of days ago. Everybody is excited about Vogelbach being gone. I think that was the big name that everybody was worried about. The Mets keeping. Drew Smith was another one that was 50-50. The Mets were trying to trade him. Didn't happen. I mean, it still could happen that they could trade him, but they tendered him a contract. But DJ Stewart, who came on when the Mets picked him up, was outstanding in the outfield. He was outstanding with the bat in the second half of the season when the Mets did pick him up. He was a fan favorite. He's a guy that the Mets actually gave a contract to. They didn't actually just, do an arbitration number. They actually signed him to a 1-year deal where they agreed to $1.3 million, $1.6 million contract. I'm happy DJ Stewart is here. He deserved to be on this team to get a roster spot. and he's a perfect fourth outfielder, a former top 10 prospect in the Oriole system. I'm actually happy with that. You could do a lot worse than DJ Stewart as a fourth outfielder. He can play right field, left field, possibly center field in a worst case scenario. But again, I like that. I don't think he's going to be a DH platoon per se by itself. I think he's going to play a lot of outfield, give guys days off. And listen, DJ Stewart can be, a guy that you might need if the Mets really think about using Marte in right field. If Marte comes in and is not really 100% healthy. So Hayden, what do you think about that with DJ Stewart? How do you feel about him?
Yeah, I mean, I think the tender deadline was very interesting. I mean, bringing back DJ Stewart, it's a low risk, small move. I mean, it's only what is it, like 1 million? It's only $1 million for the season, so you're not really banking on him much. We saw what he did in the second half of the season. He really went on a power surge. Was one of the big bats in that lineup. Will he be that necessarily in 2024? We'll see. A fourth outfielder spot, could kind of, go in that DH spot every other day or, once or twice a week, depending on how it goes. But, he offers some good stuff, decent pop in his bat, 29 years old. He never really got a fair shoot in, I guess the Orioles organization to an extent. I know it was like 4 or 5 years, but never really got a lot of playing time throughout the full season. So, he's not going to be playing every game for the Mets, but, he'll be the fourth outfielder. He'll be a nice bench role. And we know the Mets, really, and I'll be talking about it in my video coming out tomorrow, talking about the Mets bench and how that's really important for them this season. So bringing back DJ Stewart was good. Not thrilled the Mets kept Drew Smith. Put it a simple way, he is extremely mid. He's a bum. I don't know the reasoning. Trade him, please. I don't want to see him on the opening day roster. He has great stuff, but that slider, it's home run pitch merchant. Comes into a game and seventh inning, whatever, he'll throw a stupid slider and there's a 3-run homer and the Mets are down by a run. Yeah, I'm done with Drew Smith. I'm done with that facade of Drew Smith. He's not what he was projected to be, at least with the Mets. I'm not waiting for him to fix his stuff out. Too much of a liability. Please trade him. Please. It's no more mid guys in the bullpen, please. Guillorme going. No offense, but I mean, this isn't spring training highlights, catching the bat in the stands, and I get it. He was a cool guy, good vibes in the clubhouse, but I mean, unfortunately, he wasn't really anything offensively. He really offered nothing, no power. Kind of a slap hitter with a low average. So it's like if you can hit for a low average and be a slap hitter. We don't, we already have enough of those guys on the team. So, he was great defensively. He was great depth wise. He was great versatility. You put him at short, second, third. Great defensively, but you can get that out of a lot of other guys in the league and can give you more offensively than what Guillorme had. Vogelbach. I don't know if I'm allowed to curse on this, but thank freaking Lord. I mean, Frank the Tank's video pretty much summarized how I felt about that. Yeah, failed move, a common L on behalf of Billy Epler. So, yeah, super happy Vogelbach's gone. You can actually go after a DH that actually hits and swings the bat.
Yeah, I agree with that. Nelson, what do you think about the non-tender deadline for the Mets?
Yeah, I mean, similar to what Hayden said. I mean, DJ Stewart, as long as he's not playing as much as he did last season, no problem with it. I don't think he's a reliable guy that you want out there every day or even every other day. Like you want to try to keep him as a bench bat as much as possible. He was okay. He had that power surge, but it's nothing to write home about. He's okay in the outfield, but he's not great either. So definitely don't want to see him platooning at DH. I'm done with that. We need a real DH in the fold. So Yeah, we've got no problem with keeping him. Obviously, great to have Vogelback gone. He was just useless, and it just made no sense to bring him back at
Yeah.
all.
Yeah.
Um, Guillorme, again, this is just no bat. Like you can find plenty of guys that have a glove and you can stick on the bench. Like it doesn't. Missing out on him isn't a big deal. Um, Luckily, Trevor Gott's not coming back. He's gone. Um, I forget who else. It was pretty standard. The Drew Smith thing. It's not. I'm not totally surprised that they tendered him. Drew Smith. I said in my video earlier today. He's the kind of guy where if you can trade him and get something decent back, great. But if you can't, I don't mind if he's on this team as long as he's not pitching in high leverage situations. I need him to be like that. One of the last guys out of the pen, one of those filler guys that you throw in there in a blowout or you throw in there when like in a doubleheader where you have no other options, like stuff like that. But like to rely on this guy in the 7th, 8th inning, the 9th inning, as we did sometimes, is not a good idea. Hopefully those days are gone. Hopefully Stearns can actually build the bullpen and build it to the point where if Smith is still here, he's just a body out there. He's just taking up space and pitching every once in a while. But yeah, to rely on him as a legit bullpen guy is just it's not a good idea. But
Yeah.
I have no issues really other than obviously we'd rather not have Smith, but other than that, I have no issues with how the tender deadline went.
Yeah, I think the Drew Smith experiment is trying to put him in the high leverage situation. He has the stuff, he just doesn't. Again, Hayden talked about that slider. I was in Boston when he threw one of those sliders, and it's still it's probably on the edge of New England right now. How far that ball was hit. I see it as this. When it comes to Drew Smith, keep him around. Low leverage situations, blowouts. Maybe he'll have a good inning here or there in a leverage spot if you need him. If guys pitch too many innings, too many games in a row or something like that. But yeah, and look, DJ Stewart. It's always good to have a guy like that on the bench who can play multiple positions. Can come up in a spot where he can hit a home run, and that's good. But like the 2022 Mets, it wasn't talked about enough. Their bench was awesome. Anytime Buck Showalter put somebody on the bench to start, to pinch hit, to pinch run, defense, everything worked. And you need a good bench, not just because of injuries, just to give guys a day off. Give guys, that put guys in certain situations where they perform. And we didn't have that. We had too many one-dimensional bench players this year. Vogelback was a DH that didn't swing a bat. Luis Guillorme is on the team for defensive purposes. Give a guy a day off because we can play good defense. Nothing with the bat. Late in games, defensive replacement. And Guillorme was terrible last year defensively. And when you're a one-dimensional player and you're terrible at the one thing you're supposed to do well to help this team, well, you suck. That's it if you don't do that well. You're basically a fringe major leaguer. So that's the way I see it when it comes to those guys. And congrats to DJ Stewart. Hopefully he's a big proponent on and helps his team on the bench and going forward. So lastly, we're not going to really talk much about Soto. It's probably a pipe dream, obviously. Ohtani, I still think the Mets are going to offer a ton of money to him. I don't think he's going to come here, but hey, why the hell not? So let's get your opinion on that situation, Hayden, when it comes to the Soto situation, the Ohtani situation, because that relates to our DH situation, at least with Ohtani. What do you think? Do you think the Mets might pivot to Soto if things don't work out this offseason or whatever they're trying to do position player-wise?
It's a possibility. I mean, at this rate, who knows what this Mets team with what Cohen and Stearns have under their hands. I wouldn't be surprised if, I know Soto and the Yankees have been in big talks. I'm sure there's a couple powerhouse teams that are going to be very connected with Soto and push hard for him. We'll see if the Mets are one of those teams. We know the outfield depth right now for the Mets. I mean, let's go to, what does the roster consist of the outfield right now? Mets roster. Give me 30 seconds. So, I mean, really right now for the Mets roster-wise, the only outfielders they have considered is Starling Marte, Nimmo, Alex Ramirez, and DJ Stewart. So, really, the only guy on there that you can actually count on every day is Nimmo. Marte, we'll see what he offers. He'll be a topic that Mets fans and the Mets will have to discuss much later in the offseason when spring training comes closer. Alex Ramirez, I just think he's on the roster so he can get in the Rule 5 draft. And DJ Stewart, he's not an everyday player. He's a number 4 guy. So, not the worst thing possible. Another table setter in that lineup. I don't really need to go over why the Mets should go after Soto. I think it's a pretty obvious move. Everyone that's watching this knows what Soto is capable of. I just, obviously what you give up, that's one thing, but I think it's a possibility. Let's say the Mets, let's just say they don't get any offensive pieces out there. Let's say they don't get any adequate candidate for the DH spot. And, it's a month and a half from now and they're in a situation where they need it. Then, yeah, I think Soto's definitely the candidate. I hate to say it, but I think the Mets and Ohtani is a very slim chance if you were to ask me right now. But who knows? Anything could happen. That's how the Mets are. That's how baseball is. But right now, I mean, call me crazy. I don't know if there's more of a realistic chance for the Mets to gain Soto over Ohtani right now. I really don't know. I mean, I'm sure there's reports that are going to come out in the coming days, coming weeks. Yeah.
Nelson, what do you think?
When it comes to Steve Cohen and David Stearns, I don't count them out of anything. I can see a world where they pull anything off. He obviously has the money if he wants to do it. They do have the prospects if they want to. Maybe not necessarily the pitching prospects the Padres want. The one thing I try to remind Mets fans, because I see a lot of them that are like, oh, we're going to get Yamamoto and Ohtani, and we'll get Soto too. It's like, calm down, like pump the brakes a little bit. Like, we don't live in fairy tale land. I know it's not the Wilpons. Everybody likes to throw that out there. But there's a difference. There's a big gap between the Steve Cohen and the Wilpons. Like, there's a middle ground there. Like, just because you don't sign every free agent known to man, that doesn't make you the Wilpons. I don't necessarily – I think we'll probably offer Ohtani a decent contract. I don't think he's going to come here. Soto, if he's not traded early, because I could see that whole situation playing out for a while, I think that's the fallback option. That's if the Mets strike out on most of their top targets, if they don't get a Yamamoto, if they don't get anybody else as a bat, then yeah, I could see a world where they're like, all right, we really need to consider trading for this guy, or maybe even that crazy White Sox deal where Cease and Robert were packaged. They were saying that could happen. I could see them trying something like that again if their plan A doesn't work. Plan A and maybe even plan B, whatever that is. But yeah, I don't think there's a world where we're getting all of these guys. But yeah, backup plans isn't sure. I mean, listen, Ohtani has his limitations because of the fact that now he can't pitch next year. If he were able to pitch next year, he would be my number one target because, let's say, I mean, you're getting a top of the line starter and a huge bat. But because he can't, that my number one target became Yamamoto. But if your like consolation prize is Shohei Ohtani, I mean, that's pretty damn good. So I'm not going to be upset if Shohei Ohtani is a Met. Obviously, instantly solidifies that DH spot, instantly provides Alonso protection. So, yeah, man, we have so many options. Like, that's why I can't wait for things to actually get moving because there's so many possibilities out there. And I can't wait to see what Stearns actually has up his sleeve.
Yeah. I tend to agree with that. And it's funny because, like, you know, we talk about Steve Cohen all the time. You know, with Steve Cohen wants something, he's going to do everything he can to try to get it. I think that's still works out. I feel like, like I always go back to the Scherzer situation, even though it's different. There was no talk that Scherzer wanted to come to the Mets. The Mets wanted Scherzer, but Scherzer just had no inkling to come to the Mets. Didn't want to come here. And again, Cohen was like, "We want you," and got him into a room and figured the deal out. Again, it didn't work out, but at the time when that happened, we were all excited about that. Everybody was excited about that and the way it went down. The Correa situation overnight. That situation, I was at work and I almost, ran my forklift into a truck, when I heard that happen, overnight. It's, things like that. I never put past Steve Cohen because I feel like, you know what? He wakes up one morning, he has a martini and says, shit, let's go get Ohtani. That's what I feel like he's going to be when it comes to Ohtani. Soto, I think, like you said, Nelson, it's a situation where if they don't get Yamamoto, they strike out on other top guys that they were looking for. That's when they're probably going to go after somebody like Soto, I think, if he's still available. And I think the Soto situation is going to happen later in the offseason because it makes no sense for any team to trade for Juan Soto because there's a lot of guys on the market that teams are still looking to get, even if it's, pitching or position player. Soto's going to be probably a worst case scenario for every team that missed out on those guys. So tomorrow, 8 a.m., Yamamoto is posted. That is every Met fans should be number one target. Everything relies on the Mets offseason starts with Yamamoto. It starts with Yamamoto. Look for the Mets to really have a good offseason, in my opinion. Yamamoto is number one, and I think everything else could just fall into place if you get Yamamoto. Because number one, don't think for a second the Battle of New York with Yamamoto and the Mets and the Yankees. That's a big deal. This is the first time in the Steve Cohen era that he's going to be going against the big bad Yankees and Hal Steinbrenner battling for the same player. This is the first time. Everybody thought it might have been Ohtani. That's really not probably going to be a case. Soto is probably more Yankees than Mets. Both teams want Yamamoto badly. And again, this is going to look bad for one of these teams. Not only do you have to deal with the fan base being pissed off at you, you got to worry about the fan base on the other side of the town that is going to be like, haha, we got him, you didn't. So let's see what happens with Yamamoto. Hopefully the Mets have the biggest offer. I think the biggest offer is going to get him no matter where he wants to be. So that's the way I see it, guys. So going to say goodbye to everybody. We're going to go to Nelson and Hayden and talk about their channel really quick before we go. Hayden, talk about your channel, your videos that you're going to be posting next couple of days, and whatever else you have on your mind.
Yeah, what's going on, everyone? Mets Talk with Hayden is the name. Live streams, videos, news, analysis, discussions, all that great stuff for the Mets during the offseason and regular season. I'll have a video going up tomorrow about 5 predictions for the Mets this offseason. Follow me, subscribe to my YouTube channel, Mets Talk with Hayden. Follow me on Twitter at Mets Hayden. Let's go Mets. Hopefully everyone has a good Thanksgiving. If you're traveling, safe travels. Otherwise, eat some good food and have a good holiday. LFGM. Absolutely.
Nelson, same thing.
Yeah, man. Amish Country Mets fan here. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Patrick St. Clair, go F yourself. I'm sorry. I am tired of reading his comments. But yeah, if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, I appreciate you guys. Have a great Thanksgiving, everybody. And yeah, as far as content, same pretty much as what Hayden said. There's a lot of similar stuff, just different perspectives. If news breaks, I'll be on it. I'm sure I'll be on either a live stream or you'll see a video with me and the pig. Something doesn't matter what time of night. I'm usually up late, so I'll be ready if any signings happen during the week. Probably not too much content this week with the holidays and whatnot, but if news breaks, there will be something because I'm. Even if you want to get together, Rob, should hit me a message late night. I'm willing to jump on with you and talk. So yeah, man, everybody, hope you guys as well have a great holiday. If anybody's traveling, like Hayden said, be safe. and appreciate everybody. And thanks, Patty. I see Patty, my girl Patty in there. So thanks for watching, Patty.
Absolutely. So yeah, guys, exactly. Again, I work overnight, as most of you know. So if anything breaks, maybe I'll shoot over a message to Nelson, and I'll pop on from work and hide in the corner and do what we need to do for our channels. And that's the way it goes when it comes to that. So once again, guys, everybody have a happy Thanksgiving. If you can't come back on the stream or in the chat and everything like that, I will be doing a couple more live streams before Thanksgiving. So happy Thanksgiving, Nelson, Hayden, everybody in the chat. Be safe if you're traveling. Don't do nothing stupid. And make sure you eat a lot of turkey or ham or whatever the hell you eat. And Nelson, enjoy your farm. Hayden, enjoy being home for a little while. And guys, another Mets hot stove in the books. Yamamoto, 8 a.m. tomorrow, guys. So everybody have a great night. As always, Mets fans, let's go Mets. See you next time, guys. Have a good night.
Let's go Mets.
Give 'em a hand and let 'em know you're rooting in the stand. Come on and meet the Mets. Meet the Mets. Step right up and greet the Mets. Bring your kiddies, bring your wife. Guaranteed to have the time of your life, because the Mets are really stopping the ball, knocking those home runs.